let me be very clear. The FBI is withholding information. Somebody does not want Pam Bondi to have the information she wants the public to have right now. And she is, I rarely use this word, guys, she's pissed. Pam Bondi is absolutely, positively pissed. This letter that she just sent to Kash Patel at the FBI shows that she is furious. Why? Because she asked for the FBI records as they pertain to one Jeffrey Epstein. And what did she get? Nothing. She got information that was already publicly available and everybody's already seen. So that is a problem. I want to read to you the letter that she sent out there. I have a lot of theories, by the way, on just exactly why this is going down the way it is. And, I got to tell you, Comey, what the heck was going on there? It's another big story that we're covering today. His honeypot scandals. One has to wonder how many honeypot scandals were going on with Jeffrey Epstein as well. And whether the U.S. intelligence divisions knew all about it and sanctioned those honeypot scandals. I have a guy coming on the program today, George Papadopoulos. You remember him? He was the guy that was working on the Trump campaign. And he was the victim of 3 honeypot schemes. Ooh, he's got a lot to say. And he is thrilled that Kash Patel is opening a criminal investigation into James Comey and what went down with those alleged honeypot schemes. But that's different from what we're looking at right now with Epstein. We have a lot of questions on Epstein. We want to know exactly what he was doing, why he was doing it, who he was working for, and of course, just exactly who polished him off, if in fact that's what happened. The party line is different, right? So Pam is demanding this information. She's not getting it. So she writes a letter and released this today. Dear Director Patel, before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs. By the way, we have a lot of that already. Epstein's list of contacts, again, we actually have a lot of that already, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. And of course, she wanted to be very careful and very cautious about not releasing anything as it related to the victims. She went on to say, I repeatedly questioned whether there was a full set of documents responsive to my request and repeatedly assured by the FBI that we have received the full set of documents. Yeah, right. Late yesterday, I learned from a source from the FBI field office in New York that it was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, Pam writes, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn of this new information. So, she writes, by 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio, and video recordings, because that all exists, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings nor limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of victims and in accordance with the law, as I have done my entire career as a prosecutor. I am directing you to conduct an immediate investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action within 14 days. I appreciate your immediate attention to the importance in this matter. You guys, they got a civil war going on. They got an FBI that is absolutely refusing to play ball with the new kid in town, one Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. There were a lot of documents Don't tell me 200 pages is going to cover it. If I were to print out, and I think this is a matter of public record, I was actually Zero Hedge, a website I like. I was on their site last night and they had a link to all of the flight logs that had already been published. And there's quite a bit of information out there. And so you can see all that. It's there. That'll fill 200 pages right then and there. And they think that they're going to pull the wool over Pam Bondi's eyes? I don't think so, guys. You know what? She's not stupid. Kash is not stupid. I'm not stupid. The public's not stupid. And certainly the President of the United States is not stupid. What's up with that? The woman who is leading the task force, meanwhile, Representative Ana Luna Polina out of Florida, she's not one bit happy at all with this as well. You know, she didn't even get, I'm sure Pam was like, well, why bother? Why bother giving her this information? She's like, wait a second. I had to read about this in the New York Post. What the heck? Apparently they invited some influencers in and they handed them this phase 1 thing, which was irrelevant, okay? So you don't have any information that's really, it's like, okay, just we're going to send this out in dribs and drabs. But you know what? Pam knew. Pam knew that Anna was going to look at that and be like, you got to be kidding me. So if this is phase 1, phase 2 is due by 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th. She wants the complete and full Epstein records. How much you want to bet they have no intention of giving it to her? No intention of all. And meanwhile, that's if they even still have them. I mean, let's be honest. If there's what I believe going on, then entirely possible that these documents have already been destroyed. In fact, there's an FBI whistleblower out right now that's warning of this. His name is Garrett O'Boyle, and he was on my friend Benny's show just yesterday. I want to play this clip for you because this is very important.
That there are FBI servers that are sort of standalone, and people inside the FBI have been working night and day to destroy files on these servers. And I was told that once these files are destroyed, the way they are set up, that even Elon Musk could not restore them. So that's happening right now as we speak.
Okay, that was 24 hours ago. They do not want Pam Bondi nor Kash Patel to have access to the information and files surrounding one Jeffrey Epstein. Now, why might that be? Why is she being forced to have to issue this letter? I mean, I think we know what's going to happen next, right? She's going to make this demand. Nothing else is going to happen. And we're going to come to the conclusion that he is somehow, perhaps, and this is what I want to know the answer to, a protected asset, was a protected asset. Okay, the guy's a scumbag, right? I'm not going to get into the details of what he did, but it would actually make you absolutely positively sick. We know that, okay? And he took up with a scumbag, the woman who's now in jail for some 20 years. This woman was the daughter of Ghislaine, if I'm saying that right. She was the daughter of somebody named Robert Maxwell, who was a big media mogul in the UK. And he was alleged to have done work for all kinds of people. All right, so this is how it all ties back. So she's got this dad who apparently was responsible for putting in surveillance software called Promise into global governments all around the world. And allegedly, this Promise software gave some kind of backdoor entry for the Mossad intelligence group into understanding other intelligence agencies around the country. Forgive me, the world. So he at some point died suspiciously. He was drowned, apparently. And there's a lot of sort of suspicion that was actually a hit job of sorts. But there's also belief that somehow she was, as his most favorite child, as his most favorite daughter, she was groomed to kind of take over the family business, if you would. And the family business was gathering compromise on people, which means stuff that can be used against them in the event that you may want to do so. And this is sadly something that intelligence agencies all around the world actually engage in. And so if she were to carry on the business, how might she do that? You'd need somebody darn charismatic who could actually court all these influential people, entertain all these influential people, and have some kind of something on them that could be used in the event a government so decided it needed to. This is the thinking anyway. And this is one of the things that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are going to try and come out and damn Bongino to prove out. Because you know what? I'm sorry. Like, you know what? The honeypot stuff is bad enough. And we're going to talk to George later about that because he had 3 honeypots come his way. But in this case, you're talking about young kids, okay? Young women. And it makes my stomach turn to even talk about this and think about this. But if our government knew this was going on and allowed this to go on for their own benefit, then to hell with them all. You know what? To hell with them all. And that is why you need to go in and bust up the whole frickin' place. And so if Pam doesn't get that information, she now has it in writing to Kash Patel that there should be consequences, which means heads are going to roll like you've never seen before at the FBI. Because you cannot engage in a cover-up at this point. The American people have put Donald Trump there because they want to know the answers to these questions. Back to the questions, okay? So Epstein was a very charismatic. I actually never met him, but I have spoken with sources who knew him quite well. And they said he was just like the most charismatic man, like just unbelievable. They'd never known anybody so charming. So entertaining and so charming. Well, somehow, he started out as a math teacher at Dalton, which is a private school on the Upper East Side of New York. And it went from there to become a trader, just a floor trader at Bear Stearns. Something happened at Bear Stearns. This is like back in the 80s. And he left and he hung out a shingle and he suddenly became, Epstein Enterprises or whatever the name of his company was. And he was an asset manager, they said, but he didn't have any clients. And like typically, if you're an asset manager, there's lots of records of all your financial dealings, this, that, and the other, and you're making investments. He only had one client, a guy named Les Wexner, who's the founder of Victoria's Secret, L Brands, right? And this guy is rumored to have had a lot of connections with U.S. intelligence agencies, etc. Somehow along the way, Ghislaine, forgive me, I know I'm mutilating that. It's French, what can I say? Well, Ghislaine gets to meet Jeffrey, and knowing that she needs, she's got all these contacts in the intel community. She really needs somebody to take over this family business of compromise. What if they can take it to the next level? I mean, what if you were to put that surveillance software in all of these rooms, in his New York home, in his Caribbean homes, in his planes? I mean, if you put all this software in and you could surveil people, very important people at all times, and then, you really got some pretty awful stuff on them because, again, I'm not going to get into details, but you know what I'm talking about. Well, is that how he made his money? Right? Because it doesn't seem to have been asset management per se. No, you just have one client. And how is it that when it all came out, he got 8 months? And he only had to do 12 hours in jail and 12 hours off? What was that? I mean, they knew what was going down. And yet he got this sweetheart plea deal back in 2008 in Florida. And the former U.S. attorney at the time, Alex Acosta, who had handled the case, allegedly later told the Trump people that Epstein, quote, belonged to intelligence. That's why he went easy on him, because he, quote, belonged to intelligence and should be left alone. Which gets me back to, whoa, what was that? So did Epstein take over the Maxwell family business using the Promise software that her dad had been putting into global governments? They put the Promise software into the homes, and then they entertained every Tom, Dick, and Harry, that was somehow a billionaire or a prince or whatever else. And they got compromising material on them. And this is like big time honey traps, honey pots, whatever you want to call them. I mean, Comey's looking like, tame with what he did with George Papadopoulos. We'll talk to George in a little bit. Although no excuse for Comey either, by the way, because that's a whole other thing. They were trying to embed the Trump campaign to try and spy on the Trump campaign. And George thinks they were actually doing this to a lot of the Republican contenders. I mean, we're suddenly talking about a lot of honey traps all of a sudden, right? All these honey traps, which I'm going to get back to something as a woman. What the heck are they doing with women, right? In intelligence. And certainly when it comes to Epstein, this stuff is super sad, just super awful, okay? So you've got Epstein getting the sweetheart deal. Nobody knows quite why he got that. And it wasn't until, 2019, everything started coming forward, more so, especially after Prince Andrew was in the news. And then they moved forward with these things in New York. And yet, he wasn't in jail very long. Now, was he? Before he suddenly died. They say he took his own life. I'm not buying that. You buying that? I'm not. First of all, I spoke recently with somebody who, was the doctor, actually, of both Ghislaine and Jeffrey. So he had been his doctor for many years. And he said to me that he spoke to him like the day before he died, and he was fine. He was totally fine. He was having, not to be indelicate, but I might as well, put it all out there, having some constipation issues, okay, the doctor said. And so the doctor was advising him on that. This would gel with what we also heard from lawyers who said he seemed in high spirits, and he was actually apparently willing to cooperate and turn over a lot of information. Apparently, Ghislaine was not willing to do that. She was like, which kind of makes you wonder. She was like running the whole thing, right? Like she's not willing to. So there were people that may have been, I'm just saying, now I don't have any proof on this. Pam Bondi's looking for proof on this. Kash is looking for proof on this. I'm just speculating here based on, a couple things. One, how is it that the guards are asleep or not there when he's been moved into a private cell, right? You moved him into a private cell, even though I spoke with the doctor, and the doctor said he was totally fine and in high spirits. Lawyers have said he was fine and in high spirits. You moved him into a private cell. You said he was on watch, and yet the guys that were supposed to be watching him fell asleep. And then on top of that, the cameras went out. Well, gee, what are the odds of that? And then the autopsy report was suspicious as well. So I'm just trying to put two and two together with the fact that for whatever reason, the FBI will not turn over the files that it needs to turn over to Pam Bondi. And I'm combining that together again with what the FBI whistleblower Garrett O'Boyle, who's testified before Congress, said less than 24 hours ago. Let's listen again.
That there are FBI servers that are sort of standalone, and people inside the FBI have been working night and day to destroy files on these servers. And I was told that once these files are destroyed, the way they are set up, that even Elon Musk could not restore them. So that's happening right now as we speak.
Okay. And that may be in part why Pam Bondi cannot get the information she so desperately needs in order to understand what's really going on. But I think what we're coming to the realization of is we got an intel community that's bigger and better than everyone ever. I mean, not better. Wrong choice of words. But they think they're better. They think they're better than the people in charge. Chuck Schumer recently going on MSNBC to remind everybody of that particular threat. Listen.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community. We don't know what's going on. Look at the Russian hacking. Without the intelligence community, we wouldn't have discovered it.
Do you think he has an agenda to try to dismantle parts of the intelligence community? I mean, this form of taunting hostility.
Whether you're a super liberal Democrat or a very conservative Republican, you should be against dismantling the intelligence community.
I mean, unless the intelligence community is exploiting young women. That's my question. Like, if they knew this was all going down, but they gave him special protections because it was in their interest to do so. I mean, there's ways of doing things, people, and there's ways of doing things. And this is not one of the ways of doing things, right? You don't look the other way on stuff like that. Come on. We're all human beings. Get a little religion in your life, all right? On top of that, I mean, you know they lie. They lie. Look at those lies that they told us. All of them about Hunter Biden. Piece of work he is. Wouldn't be surprised if he was down there on those flight logs too. All right, Hunter Biden. I mean, that laptop from HELL, that laptop, they tried to pass off, while the FBI had been investigating it, as no problem at all, that was just misinformation. If you believed anything that Rudy Giuliani was saying about that laptop, then you were the crazy one. I mean, talking about gaslighting people, and 51 of them, like big deal people, including the former deputy director of the CIA, Mike Morrell. We had Antony Blinken, whose idea, this was his brainchild. Let's do this. He told Mike Morrell, Antony Blinken, who went on to become Secretary of State. You think that we're going to trust you guys now when you always tell us it's us that's wrong and yet we're the ones that are right and you're the ones that are wrong? You think Pam Bondi appreciates getting a bunch of information that was already out there? You think she's dumb? No. You know what? If this is going to be a civil war between Trump and the intel community, you know, you think you're going to win that? I'm not so sure. I hear your threats, Chuck Schumer. I hear your threats. I'm not impressed. You know, Comey, James Comey, former head of the FBI, who would have known all about this, by the way. He just wanted Trump in jail, remember?
Just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
Oh, come on. Okay, so he didn't want him. Now Chuck Schumer's saying, hey, don't mess with intelligence because, you know, they're going to come back and get you. Comey, meanwhile, was always worried about this because apparently there are things that go on that you're just supposed to look the other way on. And I don't think Americans like this. I get it. All right, we're all big boys and girls here at the table, and we understand the way the world works and that there are some bad things that happen. But when you're talking about the bad things that happened here, I'm sorry. You're not going to get a pass. FBI, CIA, whoever you are that was okay with this. You're really not. If there's a connection between Jeffrey Epstein and these intelligence divisions, we're not giving you a pass. No freaking way, okay? Because Americans actually have a backbone and we have ethics and we don't want intelligence operations acting or working like that. By the way, would you stop using attractive women, for goodness sakes? Here's Comey, totally worried about what would go down should Donald Trump win.
When you think about a second Trump administration, what do you think the implications would be for the FBI?
Oh, serious, for the Justice Department and the FBI, because Trump is coming for those institutions. He knows their power, and I think he has regrets that he didn't work hard enough to corrupt them last time. So he's coming for them, and that's a danger for all Americans. He's going to put people in positions in those organizations. He didn't have all-stars the last time. He'll have the bottom of the barrel this time, but people who will want to do his will, and that should worry every American. This election matters. Because of a reason like that, people have to participate. You cannot sit on the sideline. I don't care how you feel about Joe Biden, you must vote for him because the consequences on the other side are too severe.
Oh, because we might actually find out what really happened? You don't want the American people to find out? Clearly, somebody doesn't want the American people to find out, which is why they gave Pam Bondi nothing. And this is why Pam Bondi is saying she wants it all. She wants all the videotapes. She wants all the phone records. And if she doesn't get it from the FBI field office in New York, there's going to be hell to pay. Thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation, related to the indictment of Epstein. She wants all of it. And she wants it by 8 a.m. tomorrow. Audio, video recordings, all of those things that they took from the house. Now, what if they've already been destroyed? That's going to be an issue, is it not? Unbelievable. You know, guys, I'm saddened by this whole thing. I'm saddened because you like to think that our government is above certain things. You like to think that we wouldn't ever do what is alleged may have happened. And yet, news today, again, we're learning of this honeypot scheme that was run by none other than James Comey. So leave the Epstein stuff aside for a moment. We're going from honeypot to honeypot. What do you think? Here. Here is the newest, latest, and greatest concern. You see, apparently, Comey wanted to infiltrate the Trump campaign, right? And this is different than the FISA warrant that they got on Carter Page, et cetera. This was a different kind of tactic they took to try and infiltrate. And this was something that was allegedly done entirely off the books. So we talked a little bit about this yesterday. I just want to remind you of what it is because I've got the guy who was the victim of all this here on the show momentarily. There was a big report out in the Washington Times yesterday saying a new whistleblower disclosure is revealing the agent who infiltrated Trump's campaign a decade ago. So we now know of one of the agents. I'm asking George, we're going to get to that in a second, about what he knows about other agents because he believes there were three. There were three, okay? Peace of my mind, I agree with you. Illegal much? Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is just atrocious, horrible. And like I said, you know, we're all big ladies and gentlemen here and we know how the world works, but this is not okay. This is just not okay. We want to fix it. You know what? We deserve better. The world deserves better. And so anyway, this just came out. And what they found was that there was this whole honeypot scheme that he was running in order to infiltrate the Trump campaign. Well, why would you be doing that with taxpayer dollars? Think about it. According to new protected whistleblower disclosures, the female agent was involved in the attempt to have undercover agents target the Trump team. It goes on to say, new FBI leadership appointed by Mr. Trump is starting an investigation into the origins of the agency's plan a decade ago to gain access to Mr. Trump's run by using two female undercover honeypot agents. It was an off-the-books probe, they say. It was run by Comey, and it wasn't the kind of thing that you needed to go get a FISA warrant for because, no, they were just doing this. This was all just, you know, Comey just seeing what he could actually get accomplished. I mean, this is bad because what it tells you is that they were weaponizing the FBI against a political candidate they did not want to win. They wanted Hillary Clinton to win. They wanted that extension, right? They had 8 years of Obama. They wanted Hillary Clinton to stay in power. And they did not want Donald Trump under any circumstances. So, look, I sat down just moments ago with George Papadopoulos. He is the one, he's saying he actually had 3 of them. There were 3 honeypots that came his way. And I talked to him. I also talked to his now wife. And she's like, I couldn't believe it. I said to her, I'm like, what do they look like? She said, it was like one of the first things I wondered. She said that, they look like honeypots. Of course, she's very attractive herself. So she said, of course, when I came out on the scene, everybody just figured I was another honeypot. Anyway, she's got a good sense of humor about it under the circumstances. But this is a big deal. Listen in right now. George Papadopoulos and what he went through with the FBI trying to come after him. None other than George Papadopoulos, who got caught up in everything. I mean, George, I felt bad for you at the time, and now I'm just angry. I'm really angry. But anyway, good to see you, my friend.
It's great to be with you, Trish.
According to the Washington Times, quote, the undercover honeypot agents targeted Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, according to the whistleblower. So there's the whistleblower report. We now have James Comey being investigated. It's a criminal investigation because it seems that they were sending these honeypot schemes into the Trump campaign. I guess they were really after you to try and see what kind of information they could gather. I know you've done a lot on this. You've spoken out about this. You have a documentary, All the President's Men, on this. But let's start first with what was going down. Did you have any idea way back in 2015 that you were somehow being targeted by Comey?
Yeah, Trish, it's really an incredible story, and why this is really so, why this is such a big bombshell, and why it's completely different than some of the other reporting on so-called honeypots is because this is like the second honeypot situation that was thrown my way while I was on the Trump campaign. There was a story that broke some years ago about a honeypot or honeypots that came into my life after Crossfire Hurricane initiated. Why this story is so particular and why James Comey is now under criminal investigation is because he launched an off-the-books investigation into me, into others in 2015, way before Crossfire Hurricane started in the summer of 2016, where he was basically trying to plant evidence, create evidence, to then investigate a fake crime in the midst of a presidential campaign season.
I have a question for you. Were you even, because I know that you were on another campaign first. Was it Ben Carson's? So when this was going down, when they were first targeting you, were they targeting you on the Trump campaign or on Carson's?
Yeah, so it looks like it was Dr. Ben Carson's campaign because that's who I was working for in 2015. I wasn't working for Donald Trump's campaign until March of 2016. So there was also a different report that came out that the CIA with foreign governments was actually targeting 26 Trump associates. And Dr. Ben Carson was one of those associates. I was one of them. So what it looks like was going on here, Trish, was that there was a full on-scale targeting of rivals to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's potential third term, which obviously would have been reflected in Hillary Clinton's potential victory.
If I'm following you correctly, they were out there trying to infiltrate other campaigns, not just the Trump campaign. They didn't know who was going to be the Republican nominee. They wanted to make sure that they had information on all the potential Republican nominees.
Yeah, so when I was on Ben Carson's campaign, he was actually the only candidate that actually led in the polls at one point during the campaign season. People thought it was candidate Trump. Actually, Ben Carson had 10 to 12% of the electorate. He was extremely popular among evangelical Christians, which was a major voting bloc, and it still is, obviously, in the United States. And I believe it was that support and that endorsement of Trump that really torpedoed Ted Cruz's campaign. So when you have people with that type of support, Ted Cruz, other people who are very popular, it's no surprise that the FBI the deep state, whatever you want to call it, with the Obama administration was going to spread their tentacles into various campaigns, see who some of the people were in these campaigns, target them, spy on them, get information.
I mean, they're using government assets to do it. It's wild. It's absolutely, I mean, like, this is like stuff in the movies, right? Like stuff that you don't really believe our U.S. government would do, but we've learned a lot of things, shall we say, in the last however many years. Gosh. So, George, the honeypot, all right? I want to talk to your wife later on. So she's not here yet, but because I know she was by your side through all this, and I know you guys have been through H2LL, and she worked on the documentary and did a lot of the interviews for All the President's Men that you guys have out. But what was that? Do you think you know who they were sending in? Do you think you know who the FBI agents were?
Yeah, so right now, there's been declassified information about at least one of these honeypots, and this is public domain stuff now. That person's name was called Azra Turk. They say it's a fake cover name. She was working with this Cambridge professor who was also moonlighting as a FBI and CIA asset who was targeting
Cambridge University.
Yes, at Cambridge University. Mm-hmm. So this is public stuff now. This person's gone underground. The honeypot's gone underground. But what makes this story really like crazy is that this new honeypot story was in 2015. Now, I have suspicions of who it might have been, but we're still working out these details, and I simply don't want to accuse.
Without giving any pertinent or telling information away. I mean, the way these things, as I'm told, typically work is, they send in a woman who finds a male target and showers him with a lot of affection, or like seemingly, just shows interest of some sort in order to get information. Did you feel like you were a victim of that process?
Yeah, I mean, look, that was definitely going on. I mean, and this is why it was like very like confusing, is because you're in the middle of like a very sensitive moment in like your career, in your work. You're dealing with like diplomats, U.S. diplomats, like security officials, candidates, people who might be the next president of the United States of America. And in the middle of this, you have these type of operations where they're throwing, either it's women, it could be money, it could be fake bribes, all at the same time that you're thinking, why on earth is this happening while I'm just trying to do my job? And given like the nature of what we were dealing with, it wasn't Russians, because I've never dealt with a Russian person in my life. I've never even been to Russia to this day. And I know obviously the campaign wasn't doing it. So a lot of this was coming directly from the FBI. And that's why I think the FBI's approval is so low, Trish, and why Donald Trump has really made this a major campaign promise to really reform the FBI and to make some people feel accountability.
I mean, he wasn't doing that to Hillary Clinton's campaign. And to think that they're using state money, right? Our taxpayer dollars. If this is proven out, I mean, this is massive. And I think Comey's in a whole lot of trouble. You wound up, we should point out now, President Trump pardoned you, but you wound up having to spend 14 days in jail because you lied to the FBI, quote unquote, lied to the FBI. I want to talk about that. I was thinking about you yesterday when I played this soundbite for the viewers, and I want to show it to you. It's a soundbite of James Comey on stage at the 92nd Street Y, and he's bragging that he went after Mike Flynn, and he sent agents in to ask Mike Flynn a bunch of questions, and Mike Flynn, didn't have the sophistication, and the Trump administration didn't have the sophistication to make sure there were lawyers there, et cetera. And this just kind of struck me as really a pretty darn lousy thing to do.
It's hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the sit room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. The protocol, two men that all of us have perhaps increased appreciation for over the last 2 years. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over. And so we placed a call to Flynn, said, hey, we're sending a couple guys over. Hope you'll talk to them. He said, sure. Nobody else was there. They interviewed him in a conference room at the White House Situation Room, and he lied to them. And that's what he's now pled guilty to.
What did he think they were coming over there for?
I don't think he knew. No, we didn't tell him. Just said, we got sending over a couple of agents. I want to ask you some questions. I didn't have this conversation. My deputy director did. But hope you got a few minutes. You can sit down and talk to them. And he said, sure.
Okay. Something similar happened with you?
Yeah, no, it's that's the disturbing playbook, Trish. I had just left the inauguration, and a day or two after the inauguration, I have, I'm in the morning just shaving, and I have FBI agents calling me. We're outside. We need to talk to you. And at that time, I'm like, okay, what's going on? There must be some reason, maybe I had no idea. Literally, I was just at the inauguration.
You're like, okay, I'll talk to him because I'm a patriot. I'm psyched. I'm now, my guy just won.
Exactly. And I thought it was just normal. Obviously, I was working on the transition team. I just thought, if I'm not talking to them, I would look, there's something odd considering
Right.
I wanted to have a job in the first Trump administration. So I talked to them, and basically they just let me know after I get to their office that it was a ruse, and they're there to basically catch me in a perjury trap and to frame me. And that's really when Comey said that about Flynn. We sent them. He didn't know why. We were there just to screw him over. That's what they did to me. That's what they did to other people like Paul Manafort, to Roger Stone. They tried doing it to President Trump, but fortunately his lawyers pushed back against what they were trying to frame him with. And it was just really sad that our FBI director at the time was a rogue person in the U.S. government, Trish, and that he really destroyed the credibility of a once really great and revered institution like the FBI simply for political purposes and his own nefarious goals.
It sounds like J. Edgar Hoover stuff. I mean, really. And it sounds like Comey wanted to keep all the power, and they were not happy with this administration. And you think back to all these things. I mean, the FISA warrant, right, with Carter Page and their ability to get in and track phone conversations and how that was all made up with this dossier, which this one just gets me, George, because I'm like, wait a second. So you went and bought and paid for Hillary Clinton's campaign through her lawyer, which would have been Perkins Coie, right? They went and bought this stuff from Fusion GPS, which was a bucket shop of ex-Wall Street Journal, quote-unquote, investigative reporters, my you-know-what. I mean, they're just like, slinging mud wherever they can. They go out and hire Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele, the former ex-British spy who used to spy on Russia, hires some people, including one of which our own U.S. government believed was a Russian spy. And then they come up with this piece of garbage, and they use that garbage, none of which was true, to get the FISA warrant. And you start to, this is a vicious circle. In terms of your case, they're sending in honeypots. Where does this get, how are they able to justify this in any way? Is it because that you were talking to somebody overseas and it was a Cambridge professor that they could allege may have had ties to Russia, et cetera, and therefore they had justification to swoop in on you?
Look, they had absolutely no justification, Trish, and that's why this is a very unique situation. Comey, according to the report that you referenced, had an off-the-books investigation.
So in other words, there was no FISA warrant. There was nothing.
No, what that really means is that Director Comey looked at a picture of me, George Papadopoulos, and said, there's something about this guy. I don't know what it is, but we're going to find it. I just don't have a predicate, a legal predicate, so I'm going to rip up the Constitution, and I'm going to weaponize the Department of Justice, and I'm going to weaponize the rule of law, and to destroy his civil rights and to spy on him to see if he's up to something no good. Now, in America, we don't live under a Soviet totalitarian system like Stalin, where he used to say, show me the man and I'll find the crime. Yeah. In America, you need to have a predicate for a crime, then you investigate. This is why this thing is completely an upside down situation. And the same thing with Donald Trump. They pay this guy, Christopher Steele, the Hillary Clinton campaign pays him, and they say, hey, let's find this British spy. He might be credible at the surface level, and we're just going to pay him to come up with nonsense, lies, which have all been debunked, about Donald Trump, about people like Carter Page, just to spy on him and try to find dirt. That is exactly what this entire thing was all about. It was planting dirt to then investigate a fake crime, to then try to destroy Donald Trump's presidency. And it's never happened before in modern
Listen, I mean, this was Obama, right? I mean,
yeah.
Hey, I have two reporter friends, James Rosen and Cheryl Atkinson, who have both said that they had their computers hacked by the Obama administration. I mean, it's crazy stuff. I think that they, and you look at even all that happened with the IRS and the Tea Party that got targeted by Obama's IRS. I mean, there's a lot there. I think that they kind of felt entitled and emboldened to do these things. And Comey had been in that seat, and I guess just according to this story, according to the whistleblowers, felt like very entitled to come out and say all this. I want to ask you where you think this goes from here. I mean, do you feel vindicated yet? Or I imagine you need more. I imagine you need more. I imagine you need an apology from Comey. You know, Comey should pay the penalty. If I were you, that's how I'd feel.
Yeah, look, Trish, my wife and I were very resilient people. We never wanted to portray ourselves as victims. It's not in my mentality. We always were fighters. We fought back, and we knew the truth would be on our side. And that's exactly what's happened here. Not only was I pardoned by President Trump, later on, you've had people from the FBI who have gone to prison, like people like Charles McGonigal. He was Peter Strzok's boss. This is something that a lot of people don't know about. He was sentenced to prison after the Durham investigation. You have people like Kevin Kleinsmith, who was the FBI attorney in charge of Crossfire Hurricane. He's now a convicted felon during the Durham investigation. So these are like little bits of accountability that I think are good first steps, but we need a lot more, Trish. And I think this step that Director Kash Patel is doing by criminally investigating Comey and allowing the American people to see really how pervasive like this rot and corruption was, and how weaponized the Department of Justice was under Obama, and then how it led into the Biden administration. These are things that Americans need for one reason and one reason only, and that is to restore trust in the rule of law, in our Constitution, and in how our country functions. Yeah. Because if we don't trust the FBI, we like the court systems, cases just won't operate. I mean, it's a very disturbing situation in America, but I think Donald Trump is on the right path towards restoring some credibility to these institutions.
George, why do you think they went after you?
They went after me, well, I was working with very high-profile conservatives during the Obama administration at the Hudson Institute. A lot of my colleagues were people who just left the W administration. So you had people like Scooter Libby, Douglas Feith, Paul Wolfowitz. You know, these were people my career started with for 7 years. So I think Obama, just like you mentioned your friends in the journalism world, conservative reporters, they did nothing wrong, but there was just something about them that they had to spy on to see what they were doing simply because they were the opposition. I think it was because of that. I was a young guy growing very quickly in politics, joined 2 presidential campaigns, had an interesting background, a lot of global connections, and I think that is the reason they just said, we have to find something on this guy. We have to stop him in his tracks. And what better way to do it than to kill 2 birds with 1 stone? We take out Papadopoulos, and then we take out Ben Carson and Donald Trump. And that's really what it looks like the modus operandi was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would your wife talk to us a little bit? Because I know she worked on the documentary, Simona Mangiante.
Absolutely. She's
let's bring her in. Simona, thank you for joining us. I know the cramped quarters there. This is Simona Mangiante, and she is actually one of the hosts on All the President's Men, and I know you guys have a podcast together, Global View on YouTube. I was actually fortunate enough to be on your podcast recently and enjoyed it very much. But I just, what is that like? Like, this is your husband going through all of this. I know that you've been entrenched in it, because of him, but also some of the other players that got involved. Give me sort of your your thoughts on what's been going down here the last 9 years.
Hi, Trish. Thanks for having me first. This is a very disturbing story because, besides the sensational spy story, the honeypots trying to, seduce him, we have to think that there are tax money of our contribuents that are allocated to set up your fellow Americans rather than prosecute crimes. Mm-hmm. So when we go a step back from this aspect, that, as I said, is kind of out of a Hollywood movie script, we see what really these people are doing. And this completely tarnished the FBI as an institution. Thanks God, with Kash, Patel and the new Trump administration, we will likely have this back. On the personal point of view, I just want to make something clear. At the time I met George, I was not in his life when he was, playing around with the honeypots.
With the honeypots, I know.
Thanks God, because, I just I feel like everybody says, oh my God, how do you feel? Well, actually, in his life, in a moment in which people were suspicious of me. So I said, okay. That's not what I'm here for, and I think he's a pretty handsome guy. So this honeypot you don't have a difficult job to do at this moment. But it's crazy, and so we were casually dating, after these things happened. But even listen to the news and knowing that there were all these characters.
Do you know who they were? Do you think you know who they were?
Just in knowing how they look like, because of course I'm a woman, so I'll just I have retroactive jealousy. So
so you think because you know which ones the way they look. I mean, I'm not trying to give we're not trying to disclose anybody's identities. I'm just curious. It sounds like there's one that has been reported, but there may have been some, I guess, all working for the U.S. but from different nationalities.
One is, I think it's a Turkish national, as they call her, a battle blonde with, her style was very revealing, let's say. So there was, it's not like
George. Okay.
So, I keep an eye on him. And I was guessing how the FBI profiled what he likes. So it's important for me to know, right?
Right. Useful information, right? What does the FBI think that my now husband is going to be into?
Exactly. That's right.
But there were two more.
And we have this, I think, an Israeli national as well, and an American one. That's what I think. And I believe I might have crossed the American one at some point, because we used to work for the same law firm in London called the London Center of International Law Practice. And this place was a very shady place where we both, I think, been there for only a few months until we both realized in different times that, it was not really clear what they were doing over there. So I remember all this young professional coming at the table from different governments background, like myself, I was working for the European Union. So, and I remember I might have crossed there once, but before I even met him. So at least I know one of them, I think.
Wow. I mean, you guys got to write a movie. I mean, I know you have the documentary, but I'm sorry for everything you went through. It is so wrong. It's so unfortunate. I'm sorry for what the country's been through. I'm sorry for what President Trump and his family have been put through. This came up yesterday, actually. I'll play this sound for you because somebody said to him in a press conference, they asked him about retribution and, do you not have any sympathy, say, for Jack Smith? And here's what he had to say in response.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who worry that targeting an individual firm or individuals who aren't Jack Smith for his actions?
I've been targeted for 4 years, longer than that. So you don't tell me about targeting. I was the target of corrupt politicians for 4 years, and then 4 years after that. So don't talk to me about targeting.
You guys know what that's like.
President Trump took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I would have said this Same exact thing, and he literally spoke for millions of Americans, because it's what you said, Trish. It wasn't simply me targeted, General Flynn, the 2016 campaign, President Trump. It was about MAGA. It was about 75 million to 80 million Americans that voted for President Trump for his campaign promises to restore integrity to America, to restore the rule of law, to revitalize the economy, and to stop World War III from happening. Yeah. That's what, at the end of the day, these voters were potentially disenfranchised and saw their rights usurped and destroyed. And that's something that President Trump just adamantly understands. That's why he responded the way he did, and I'm glad he did.
Well, thank you guys for everything you are doing. You know, I'll tell you this, George, you've never been afraid to speak out on any of this, and I appreciate you continuing this crusade, and congratulations on meeting the woman of your dreams along the way. Simona, it's so nice to see you again, and I am wishing you guys the best of luck. Please come back on and keep me posted on all of this. You can find Simona and George on their YouTube channel, Global View. Also, make sure, this is actually on Tucker's network, All the President's Men, their documentary out on this on TCN. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks a lot, Trish.
Wow. You know, it's just unbelievable. You think about how people's lives were affected through this whole thing. I've known George for years. He used to come on my show way back, even when this was first going down. And here we are, 9 years later. And listen, I'm telling you, Kash Patel is like a dog with a bone. And you want to know who else is like a dog with a bone? And I know him well. And he's a wonderful, wonderful person. This is Kash's deputy at the FBI. We got to get Dan on this program, right? I'm going to text him. He's got a mission, and he's going to see it through. He is heading straight for this Russia stuff, because he's had it. It was all fake. It was all wrong. They did bad things. People's lives were ruined as a result. We're glad that George met his wife, Simona, throughout this process. But wow, I mean, look what happened to Flynn. If they're entrapping you, right? They're deliberately entrapping you, and they kind of get you to the breaking point, right? You can't handle the legal bills anymore. That's what they were trying to do with Trump. I mean, come on, Letitia James and the judge coming up with a nearly $500 million fine. Give me a break. Anyway, I know Dan has got to be furious right now that they are not giving the information that America deserves as it relates to the Epstein file. And by the way, we're going to get this information as it relates to what went down with Russia, because he's not over it. I'm not over it. Kash is not over it. George is not over it. Look.
Particularly good mood today. If you only knew. You ever hear that House on Fire song? It's one of his old songs. This guy's on fire, just like the Bailey song. That house on fire. He is on fire, Schiff. Well, 100% success rate of failing. Why is Adam Schiff so worried? Folks, I strongly encourage you to go back and take another look today at the Russia collusion hoax. I know it's a story that's old and a lot of people want to move on. I'm going to be straight with you. I don't want to move on. We had the FBI, in conjunction with the Department of Justice, officials in Congress, foreign governments, and intel people, fabricate a story, invent a story that could have caused and done serious long-term harm to international relations with a nuclear-powered foe. It's kind of a big freaking deal. I'm not letting it go. And you listen to me. This is going to be very important in the coming days. I'm not letting this go. I want to find out what happened, because it can never happen again. Not to a Democrat, not to a Republican, not to a Libertarian, not to any United States citizen. You do not get to alter or try to change the course of electoral politics by fabricating a story, hijacking the justice system then to give the patina of truth to a fake story. You don't get to do that. Why do I bring that up now? Because who is the ringmaster of that circus? Yes, Adam Schiff. And no, I'm not letting it go.
Okay, you get the message? So they're scared. They're scared. They're so scared. But you know what? We don't need to deal with this crapola again.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put in office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see the president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
The one thing that Trump...
I mean, I can't take it. You know that thing goes on and on and on. Unbelievable. And it was all lies. And so doesn't somebody have to pay the price for that? And they're going to try and cover things up. And they're going to try and, like what they're doing with the Epstein thing, right? No, nobody gets to know. Only them. They're going to try and hide information. That's not going to fly with one damn Bongino. Let me just tell you guys, okay? It's not going to fly. I know Pam. It's not going to fly with Pam Bondi. It's not going to fly with Kash Patel. So you guys are going to have to come clean on stuff. And you know what? If it means totally changing the apparatus, it means we're going to be totally changing the apparatus. And you know what's amazing about that? CNN has started making threats. Yeah, CNN is out there saying, well, I don't know about that because, you know, on the seventh floor at the CIA, there's some officers that are thinking about maybe going rogue and switching to the other side. I'm like, who the heck is in our CIA, for example? All right, like we were clearly recruiting the wrong people. This came up on my friend Jesse Waters' show last night on Fox. Listen.
But Intel doesn't like being told what to do. When they saw Musk with the chainsaw doging foreign aid, they started leaking to CNN. If you doge us, there will be consequences. On the CIA's seventh floor, home to top leadership, some officers are also quietly discussing how mass firings and the buyouts already offered to staff risk creating a group of disgruntled former employees who might be motivated to take what they know to a foreign intelligence service. The CIA is telling CNN that if their funding gets cut, they're going to sell state secrets to Russia. Who the hell hired these Benedict Arnolds? The CIA is supposed to be filled with patriots, not sellouts. And the FBI is up to no good, too. Michael Schellenberger is reporting a source inside the FBI says the Bureau is destroying evidence. Now we know what their accomplishments were last week. Dear Elon, I wiped the servers cleaner than crooked.
I mean, he's right, though, on like, who the heck are we hiring? Who are we hiring in the CIA if they're actually such treasonous traitors that if they don't like whoever's in charge, they're going to go work for China or Iran? Ana Paulina Luna, again, representative from Florida. We're going to hear a lot from this woman. We're going to bring her on too, because you got to get to know her because she's terrific. She's no nonsense. And she's in charge of the task force for all of this classified information to be made public. So she's angry about what we saw from the FBI today, and she's clearly not pleased with what they're talking about the CIA, because if the CIA agents are leaking around that they may just go defect, they'll go take their intel and go over to the highest bidder. What kind of CIA do we have? Thank you very much. And she said, look, this is actual treason. These people are pretty treasonous. So this is frightening stuff. And you know what? I got to get to what they're trying to sell you on The View today, because they're trying to, it's like gaslighting all over again. And I'm sorry, like we're over it. Guess what? We won. Quick reminder, we won. And there's lots of good stuff ahead. I think as an investor, you know that's sort of my background, right? Started off in investment banking and wound up in reporting. So there's a lot of financial undertones, shall we say, to all of the stories that I cover. But I do have a financial research company called 76 Research. I just want to give a quick shout out for you. It's just $1 a month. You can get a subscription there to 76research.com. Get the 76 report, $1 a month, you guys. And if you're ambitious and you want to start really investing, we have 3 different portfolios there for you. They've all been doing extraordinarily well. And the whole idea is you want to be able to grow your money and make money and be in this thing for the long term. So use code word dollar. That way you get it for $1 a month. Code word dollar at 76research.com. But I will say this, you know what? We got a lot of people that don't really seem to have the right focus or the right center, and they have a bad case, a TDS. I mean, you're seeing it going on over at The View, are you not? I mean, The Viewer, by the way, they've had to fire some people. Yeah, they've had to fire some people because, I don't know, maybe all that CIA money was drying up. I'm kidding, of course. We don't know that for sure, but it's rather amazing how many media organizations were getting all kinds of funding from USAID. I mean, that was amazing to me. Reuters and AP and, you name it, Politico. So I guess they had some incentive to report things a certain way. And if you wonder why, it got ratcheted up most recently, well, the money started getting bigger and bigger most recently. Here's Joy Behar today trying to say that Elon Musk is the traitor. He's the problem, not the CIA agents that are willing to go work for China or Iran because they don't like Trump. No, it's Elon.
And Elon Musk kisses his butt and strokes his tiny ego or big ego, whatever it is. And he doesn't get to he can take a nap while the guy was not born in this country, who was born under apartheid in South Africa, so has that mentality going on. He was pro-apartheid, as I understand it.
He's a naturalized citizen.
Right?
Now.
He's a naturalized
citizen. Now he's
citizen.
a naturalized citizen.
Oh, really? How did he do that? Did he come over the border legally?
He had an H-1B visa, I believe.
He flew in.
Yeah, he allegedly overstayed that visa.
Yeah, but I think this is just perfectly wonderful for Trump. He can take a nap and let this foreign agent, an enemy of the United States, do his job.
Anybody else?
I don't like Elon. I wouldn't go as far as to necessarily call him an enemy of the United States yet. Let's give him a little bit of time.
Did you hear the applause? You heard the boo, 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 boo. You have to applaud. I mean, that's actually all scripted, you see. They really ought to just have a track. You just play a computer button, but they still have the live studio audience. I don't know for how much longer, because that show is on its last legs. That show is probably one of the worst shows on television, period. They know it. I think that the talent there, they're so intimidated by this new media. All of us over here that are streaming, they don't understand what it is. They resent it, and they feel like we have sort of helped Trump along, I don't know, by maybe getting out the truth. Do you remember when Joy Behar just went crazy about one Joe Rogan? This may have been right after Trump went on and did 3 hours with Joe Rogan. Anyway, she's going crazy. I don't understand all these people, and they've got these podcasts, and what do they matter?
That's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News. But
we're checked by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we have the legal note here.
The human legal
But we went from Walter Cronkite. Basically, to this guy Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons. He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, like dinosaur type of animals, roamed the earth when people did. So this is the type of really, really bad information that's going out there.
Well, in defense, there are some really good news.
It's possible that Donald Trump did roam the earth when dinosaurs were here.
There are.
Yeah. Okay. So she's going after Rogan, and it's completely out of context because he was having a conversation about just how amazing it is that you see these mystical creatures throughout history and art, etc. But she doesn't even know who he is, and then says, how can this guy have any presence? We're ABC News after all, right? We're ABC News, and we get the legal note. Well, apparently their lawyer, that one Sunny Houston, kept saying things that were legally not correct, that they had to keep having her correct herself live on the air. Here's Joy again trying to come up with some really bizarre excuse about, You guessed it, Russia.
To your point, Sarah, I think most presidents don't sit in a room with the leader of an ally without an interpreter, especially if they don't understand the language. I think this president, unfortunately, perhaps either doesn't understand geopolitics and doesn't understand the importance of having allies and the importance of our allyship, or perhaps there is a reason why, to your point, Joy, that he is so enthralled with Russia. I don't know if it's because he thinks by getting Russia closer to the United States that perhaps they'll ice out China. I think that is a ridiculous reading of the political landscape.
He can't figure that out.
Or exactly. Or again,
yeah.
He just doesn't understand geopolitics in the way that a president should. But we kind of knew that before,
What if
right?
he owed Putin? Maybe he owes something to Putin.
You see? They're just never gonna, they can't give up the Russia thing. And especially now because it's being brought back and we're shining the light on it and it's all coming out and they can't let it go. They really can't. I mean, you combine that with, some of their commentary. We just heard them going off on RFK. I mean, I don't mean to torture you with these people, but I honestly think that there is something I'll be nice. Quite special about this show. I mean, I don't know what I would do, right? If it went off the air, we wouldn't be able to point out all the craziness that happens. But there was this one moment just recently when they were going on and on and on about RFK Jr., and they couldn't believe that he was going to be head of HHS, and that was just so terrible and so bad. Let me see if I have this one for you because I think this is kind of an important thing to see. Do we have it?
And Elon Musk kisses his butt and strokes his tiny ego or big ego, whatever it is. And he doesn't get to he can take a nap while the guy who's not born in this country, who was born under apartheid.
No, that wasn't it. Anyway, she was recently going on also about RFK, and I just thought that was rather unbelievable. And I thought I would give a shout out to a cause that I care about, which obviously is lowering drug costs. And I know this kind of seems like a non sequitur on a day like today, and we're going to get back to some of the other important stuff regarding this Epstein file that wasn't. But do keep in mind, guys, that the president is trying to deliver on everything. So whether it's making sure that we get all the information vis-a-vis whatever went down with Epstein, whatever went down with Russia, whatever went down with James Comey and his honeypot operation, all of that information needs to come out. The assassinations of JFK, that needs to come out. RFK, it needs to come out about MLK. And, it's hard when you have a system that's sort of stacked against you, whether it's the intel operations, right, that are so stacked against you, or whether, you have a Congress that, for whatever reason, is embedded with certain lobbyists and certain organizations that are bankrolling them, and then you're working against that. We were just talking the other day about whether or not we're going to get an extension of the tax cut. Are we? I mean, that's all up in the air because you get some rhinos that are willing to take the money, and that would be actually pretty disastrous if we didn't get an extension of the tax cut. But the other thing that would be pretty darn disastrous, let me just say, is if we see all these prices on drugs going up. 575 brand name drugs in January alone. They raised prices on, they blocked competitions on, they want Americans spending more money on all of these medications, hardworking Americans that don't have the money to begin with. I mean, you're paying taxes and it's going for transgender operations in Guatemala. It ought to be going to help lower your drug costs, honestly. Anyway, they're pressuring Congress right now to implement mandates that will undermine the one real check against drug companies and ban the very market-based incentives that really are out there to help employers and to help families save on prescriptions and healthcare And even worse, you get Big Pharma wanting to strip American employers of the freedom of choice to actually choose who they want to be providing the health benefits. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's like they want to put us in some kind of fascist regime. These proposals would actually hand Big Pharma. Guess what? It's all about money. Didn't I tell you? It's always about money. $32 billion is the big money grab, and it will come at the expense of American employers and American families. So, Conservatives for Lower Healthcare Costs is on this. They're all over it. They don't want Big Pharma taking over. We got RFK Jr., okay? Let me tell you, he doesn't want Big Pharma taking over either. So that's a good thing. But you get the rest of Congress. It's just like we were talking about the taxes the other day, right? You know, we got Trump, and he's all about lower taxes. But if we don't get an extension of the tax cut because you get too many rhinos in the way, then you got problems. Well, it's the same thing here with lowering drug costs. You got to actually have everybody doing the right thing. And so Conservatives for Lower Healthcare Costs is out there trying to, rizz up all the Congress people around the country and say, hey, do the right thing. You can be part of this. You can help join this effort. You can help tell your congressperson, hey, I don't want my drug costs going up. And so there's a website I want to give you. It is Pharma Windfall. PharmaWindfall.com. It's important. You should go over there and check that out because Pharma Windfall, let me see if I can put this up on the screen for you guys. All right, let's do that just so you have it. Pharma Windfall. Can I type and spell at the same time? That's how you know the show's live. There you go. Voila, PharmaWindfall.com. But they're doing really good things because you know what? They don't want Big Pharma costing you more and more and more money. We don't need that, right? And I say this as a capitalist, you understand, right? At some point, when companies get too big, they become like monopolies. They have way too much say and way too much power, and we can't allow that. Just like we can't allow the FBI not to turn over the darn Epstein documents, for goodness sakes. This is truly one of the worst insults I think we've ever had to deal with most recently. I mean, here we are, we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And Pam Bondi said, yeah, I have the files, they're on my desk. She was asked the other day, did you see anything interesting? She's like, no, not really. And I thought, well, maybe she just hasn't gone through them all. There were only 200 pages, and it's basically stuff that we know already. So what are they doing? Why aren't they giving her the real stuff? Because maybe the CIA is implicated in this? Of course, I kind of wonder if they might have already gotten rid of all those documents. Apparently, they can do all kinds of things. Just ask Chuck Schumer.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community. We don't know what's going on. Look at the Russian hacking. Without the intelligence community, we wouldn't have discovered it.
Do you think he has an agenda to try to dismantle parts of the intelligence community? I mean, this form of taunting hostility.
Whether you're a super liberal Democrat or a very conservative Republican, you should be against dismantling the intelligence community.
I have a question. When he says that we would know about the Russia hacking, what's that one? Is that the Russia thing all over? Because, if you listened closely enough to the likes of Hillary Clinton and company, at some point you started to think, wait a second, in 2016, did the Russians break into the Diebold voting machines? Yeah, I think what he's referring to is not actually hacking, but all the social media accounts, right? Like the bots that were put out there to spread information. And I think the Russians actually did it both ways because they just wanted to kind of mess with us. And this is, classic campaigns that, by the way, we ought to be doing everywhere around the world too. I'll do that before I don't even go there, right? With the Epstein stuff, I can't even talk about that. I mean, it's just, if that turns out to have been somehow in any way sanctioned by us, I think a lot of people need to go to jail, all right? A lot of people. And I want Pam to really dig in. And I know Dan will. He's been a friend for a long time. He's joining the FBI, of course, you know that. And I know he will, but we've got a lot of ground to cover. We really do, guys. Again, I'll just remind you, 76research.com, because that's the good thing in the world. Like, let's try and make some money while this is all going down. Do go over to 76 Research and check that out for me. We have a very big week ahead. Again, do not forget Pam Bondi saying that she is demanding that those files be on her desk, okay? Let's see, I have the letter right here. What time did she say? Was she going to give him to 8:30 or did she want 8 o'clock? 8 a.m. February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. We need that. We want that. We're demanding it. Pam's not giving up. She's relentless. They have met their match, okay? They've met their match. And that's why you get Kash, and that's why you get Dan in there, and that's why you got people like me right here every single day with you. I will not stop either, because I don't want to be true what I worry might actually be true, okay? My biggest worry is what the federal judge down in Florida said. Why did he go easy on him? Because he was, quote, told to lay off because he belonged to intelligence. If he belonged to intelligence and we allowed what happened to have happened, then we are responsible. Our FBI, our CIA, whoever you want to blame, they are the ones responsible and should be held responsible. Pam says if it's not on her desk by tomorrow, then she expects the FBI will make sure that they make the proposed personnel actions within 14 days. In other words, they're getting fired, all of them. We're going to clean house. We're going to start over with people who have some ethical backbone. I hope that didn't happen. Let me just tell you, I really do. But I have a feeling there's a lot more there. We have lots of questions, don't we? I'm not giving up. I know you guys aren't giving up. And this is a mission that we are on together here every day. I see so many familiar faces, Cat Crazy and David Lorenzo. And we had some super stickers or super, I wanted to be able to try and make sure I gave a shout out to anybody for all their generosity. I so appreciate it. You know, guys, we just hit over 600,000 subs. Do you know that on Christmas Day, I hit 500,000. Do you know for the last month we've had 54 million views on this channel? 54 million views. I think that's probably more views than my former employer, Fox Business. We're not talking Fox News. It was, you know, the redheaded stepchild over there, Fox Business. I think that's more views than we ever got in a month, for sure, for sure. So listen, I'm glad that George was able to join us. I'm actually going to make sure that that segment gets separated special for you, because I think it's worth going back and watching again. He's got a lot of really good stuff to say. So thank you for joining me here today. Peace of my mind, always good to see you, my friend. I appreciate seeing you over on Twitter as well. And we will continue this discussion tomorrow. I'll see you then.